So when it comes to dealing with different situations, we have seen one kind of never before kind of situation when pandemic hit us last year. I mean the
Yes.
entire globe. So leaders do deal with situation, but because of those situations, emotions are natural to come by,
Yes.
and emotional intelligence,
Yes.
another attribute. I think that is one area where again leaders get tested.
Right.
Any such experience in your career where you think that emotional intelligence really helped you to deal with the situation in a much better way?
Emotional intelligence or a people quotient has always been underplayed earlier times, but today with the advent of modern communication facilities where we are engaging on camera, whether no matter where you are sitting, I think it has become unprecedentedly important that you communicate with emotions built in it. Now, a leader would always face these issues where the emotions are running high, whether it is about managing a hyper competitive bid, for example, or big bang merger acquisition story, or dealing with the hostile investor community who constantly ask for more and more and more. So the emotions you can't separate out. And we have all seen that, whether it is on the sporting arena or whether it is in again political rallies, corporate world is no exception. So everywhere. I will only repeat what I said. You have to keep the objectivity in there, and you have to make sure that you don't get personal about it. If you stay objective, focus on your objective, focus on outcomes and not outputs. That's also important part of the leadership. You have to stay focused on outcomes. How do you create impact? And then you will be able to set aside emotions a bit. They have got their own place. There is people bring a lot of passion into their work. There are a lot of emotions people attach. There is a great pride in winning, but you have to just, as a leader, you have to ask constantly the how part, not winning at any cost but playing by the rule, playing honestly. So sometimes taking a very difficult decision of dropping out of a deal, or it could be a M&A deal which is hitting its maturity, which needs a courage, or whether it is bid no bid deal where, or there are customers who are demanding some unreasonable or some out of line things. So it takes courage to take those decisions when emotions are running high, expectations are already laid out. So there will be times where emotions will run high. You have to stay focused, you have to stay objective. Importantly, you have to take your decision makers along the line. I think one of the things I should have mentioned in the earlier question that you had asked, that what do you learn as a leader when you evolve? So one of the thing about leaders is about decision making.
Right.
And when you have some of these questions framed unpopular, we are always talking about taking a decision. So one of the big attributes of leader is to take decisions. But do you take decisions after aligning with the stakeholders? Do you communicate them effectively? Do you also see a world beyond that decision? Have you factored some of the fallbacks, consequences of that decision? And if you have factored in how well you communicate and how well you show your followers sunny side of that decision, which will help them even spring back to work the next day, is what the really leadership is all about.
A typical day of a leader is always filled with meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting, and meetings with different
Yes.
groups. I mean different audience,
Yes.
different topics, different agendas. Typically in a meeting, people have tendency to discuss people
Yes.
and not the issues.
Yes.
So as a leader, if you are in charge of that meeting, how will you help people to separate issues from the people? Because I believe that if you talk about the issues, people will be automatically taken care of. So how do you do that?
So again, like I said, always ask why. There's a nice book by Simon Sinek. Start with why.
Start with why.
Never go to who. Who is the last part. So when you have that why and what questions coming in, instead of why and how questions coming in, instead of who, then I think people actually are disarmed, because when you try to challenge people on the personal side of their decision, they feel defensive. They try to rationalize, they take posturing, and then you don't win. So the objective, the bigger objective, need to be put on the table first.
Yeah.
And then a thoughtful root cause analysis need to be done. So there is that why analysis. There are several management tools available. So the leaders, if they stay focused on the objective, focused on the purpose, focus on the problem, focus on the intent, and the path to go there, then I think you are able to separate out. And then obviously the leadership is about people. Everything is about people, and people will make mistakes. So how do you make sure that people who have erred or probably misjudged the situation don't feel threatened? And that's very important thing, because there is something called agile learning, fail fast. All these concepts are being talked about, particularly in the IT arena, on the business to corporate, business to project side. There is not much room there. But I think as long as you empower people, as long as you draw the boundary conditions, as you draw the right processes, process orientation is again you need learn as a matter of evolution as a leader. Then I think the outcome should be a process based and not an individual based. And if someone is erring by breaching the process, you need to set that right.
Right.
So and for that you need to lead by example. So zero tolerance to process breach. It's something you have to make it very clear. So the ground rules you have to lay down at the very beginning. And then talk about, was the process followed? What are the things that went wrong? What else we could have done? Is there a better way to do it? Instead of trying to attack the person who is in question.
Yeah.
So I think it's not easy though, because invariably people will come in. But I think you have to take a very objective posture.
Yeah.
Of one that is leading to solutions in terms of right root cause analysis and potential solution, and ensure that the people who you are engaging with are not feeling overwhelmed or threatened, so that they get in a defensive mode, in a shell mode, because after all the problem is encompassing all of us. We are all of us in that boat. It doesn't matter where is the leak, it will eventually take down everybody.
Right.
So I think separating people from the issues is a very important part.
Yeah.
And then there will be people who will be erring, who will be making mistakes, and sometimes repeatedly. But then you make sure that you pull them up in private.
Yeah.
Coach them.
Yes.
Show them the way. Put them through a proper learning, unlearning programs.
Yeah.
There are development needs that you need to identify. So, not everyone of us have taken the path of getting into formal education system post our graduation and post graduation. But I think if that's the way, for example, with the advent of digitalization, there are several skills that are now required. So we'll have to go back to the basics and learn them. So it may mean that you have to reprimand people, but then do that in private. Show them objectivity, show them the path to do it, and give them opportunity.
So I think while doing all of this, this basically question was about talking about the issues and not the people. When you are in the middle of meeting.
Yes.
One of the areas where leaders normally fail is when they start playing favorites. Natural expectation from leader is to treat everybody equally, which is a natural expectation. But there will be situations which will demand sizing up the people to their size. Any experience on that?
These things will happen. There will be times when X will perform better and he will be the flavor of the season, and Y will perform better in another time.
Yeah.
So when you are working as a team, you have to, again, it's like just a sporting analogy. There will be some games where somebody will click, there will be another games when another will click, there will be...
It's a team game.
It's a team game. It always is a team sport. So there will be time that somebody will be favorite for the performance that he has delivered.
At that point of time.
At that point of time. And then you have to make sure that that performance infectious or motivates the other people. So I call peer group learning.
Yeah.
So amongst the subordinates, there will be always, it's like organization where there are different business units. Some perform at some point in time, other perform at another point in time. There will be cyclical ups and downs. There will be policy that will favor some businesses, and it will dissuade some businesses. But you have to stay patient.
Yeah.
So if somebody is winning, you have to make sure that he stays motivated to continue to win. So there is undoubtedly you need to encourage him to strive harder. At the same time, somebody who has not won, you have to do hand holding. You have to make sure that he has to persist, he has to play a patience game, he has to play a time game, he has to bide by his time, or for that matter be proactive about changing few things in his controlled set of environment under his control to win the game. So playing favorites continuously is not done. I mean, because that's detrimental to a leadership. But I think giving justice to a talent, it's like that Formula One race, no? That someone who is speeding his car constantly behind you can't be in his way. So some people will be fast movers, some people you have to put on fast track, more challenging assignments, and you have to be all for it.
Yeah, great. Okay, so before we end, my final question, and my final question actually goes back to the first question. It's about the evolution of leadership. The environment, the situation is constantly evolving and it is becoming more and more challenging. So for upcoming leaders, what will be your message for them to take up when they take up the leadership?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I'm at a position where to give message or something like that. A lot of what we have spoken, I can only share some of these experiences, some of these pearls of wisdom that I have picked up from the people I have worked with. That leadership is a journey. It's probably an unending journey. You have to be at it all the time.
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of empathy. You can only lead people when you empathize with them, put yourself in their shoes, think what else they can do. So I think walking the talk is another thing, that you whatever you commit, you must deliver. Whether it is just one simple phone call or a business commitment or a meeting commitment, it has to be honored, because that's how you are building your track record or a repute, and it takes a lot of time to build that. Doesn't take much
and preserve those things,
and preserve those things. So, and then we have to be constantly learning new things, because if you have achieved leadership position, doesn't guarantee that you will stay as a leader. So you have to constantly evolve yourself, whether it is new technology, new trends. You asked about customer experience, a concept that is catching up in last few years, which never existed in the past, where the product's features used to dominate and the sale would happen, or the price advantage would dominate and the sale would happen. But in a hyper competitive environment, customer experience is making all the differentiation. So I think leader will have to constantly acquire new skills. He has to constantly look for things ahead of the curve. For that, he needs to be abreast with a dynamic economic environment, political environment, business environment, to sense opportunities before others can sense. So I think a lot of reading is something which I strongly recommend. And above all, you have to be passionate about it. You have to have a lot of, and I would end by I'm big fond of Jack Welch, and Jack Welch always says that energy, energize, execution, and edge are the 4 attributes of leadership. So I think if we keep high energy levels, if we make our energy level contagious to people so that we can energize them, we can keep our edge in terms of understanding business acumen, in terms of staying on the proposal, and finally whatever we do, we must execute. So these 4 E's of Jack Welch, what he has told, are the fantastic way leaders can move forward.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your thoughts, your views. And I think, I really enjoyed, crafting those questions, but I'm sure, the answers that you gave or responses that you gave in response to those questions are going to inspire people, are going to inspire leaders, both who are already into leadership roles and the people who are upcoming. So thank you so much, Dr. Ravindra Utgikar.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed being here. I hope this creates value for the network that you have built, and I look forward to another opportunity of engaging.
Yeah, thank you.